Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erin. I am a fourth year urology resident, and today I'm going to do a video about ways to be competitive as a urology applicant. This is obviously not a comprehensive video, nor do you have to have every single one of these traits to be a competitive urology applicant. These are just some ideas that I have thought of over the past few weeks, and I asked some of my co-residents and some of my attendings what they thought, helped make a competitive urology applicant, and I have conglomerated those ideas and I will present them to you. If you like this video or any of my other videos, please don't forget to subscribe. Let's jump in. My first tip is to make connections and utilize your connections. This, I think, is really important both when applying to residency and in residency, applying to jobs, applying to fellowship. I think it's in general really helpful for a career in medicine. Everyone always says it's all about who you know, but in medical school, if you have the opportunity to attend conferences or workshops or present at conferences, get your name out there and meet program directors, meet chairs of programs, meet even other attendings who you might be able to get on a research project with if you have a program you're particularly interested in, to integrate yourself into that program. Just get yourself out there, meet the people that you can meet, because the more people you meet and hopefully impress, the more they'll kind of talk about you in the program. Your name will be out there, and you can get on people's radar. If you say can't attend conferences or don't have the means or don't have the opportunity, if you have a program or have someone at your program or someone at your school, even if you don't have a urology program, who knows someone, they can utilize those connections too. It happens a lot. I would caution you not to use that in abundance. I would say if you are very interested in a program and say you really, really want to do an away rotation there, and you have an attending who knows, the chair of that program or the program director of that program, they can always reach out on your behalf, but then don't actually decide to do a away rotation somewhere else, because that just looks bad for everyone and potentially ruins the chances of other applicants down the line. So I would say you utilize those connections sparingly and just think about when you're using those. But get your name out there, make those connections, meet people, because that'll help you down the line. Number 2 is apply to everything early. This includes your ERAS application. This includes any supplemental things you have to turn in. This includes away rotations. Get those applications in early. Get them in on the day that they're open, not the day that they're due. So if you have access to the application before, work on that application, work on your personal statement. For ERAS, you kind of know what's going to be on it, even if you don't have access to it. Work on your personal statement, get all your scores in line, get all your CV in line, letters of rec, everything, and turn it in on the day it opens, because that just puts you in the running earlier. I think ERAS might now release all of the applications to a program on a certain day, so that this is less important now in ERAS, but even in away rotations, I think a lot of those still are on a rolling basis. So if you apply really early to an away rotation, or right on the day it opens, you're probably more likely to get that away rotation than if you apply later and they might have already filled their spots. I think this is just a good general rule for everything, because then also you're kind of less stressed. You're okay, I did this, it's done. I can move on with my life. Next is highlight your most interesting traits. This might be the most important piece of advice. I know as someone who reads a lot of applications, as a resident, certain years we are more involved in the recruiting process, and so we get to read some applications. And I know people, who talk about applications. If you highlight an interesting trait that kind of makes you unique, that is so valuable. Everyone has great research, everyone has great letters of rec, everyone has good grades, everyone has passed step. But if you have something really interesting about you, say you did this like amazing research project, mention that in your personal statement, get that out there. We've had people who have grown up on like ranches and have really interesting background. We have people who have these really interesting hobbies, even something like doing the New York crosswords or New York Times crossword puzzle every day. Like that is an interesting hobby that a lot of people can relate to. And like, you wouldn't think to bring that up, but if say you have like thousands of days of a streak of this, that's a really interesting fact about you. And that's something that people want to know about and will ask you about. Just highlight those things that you think make you unique and that are good talking points. I truly think this can get you interviews. As someone who was kind of an average applicant and then had an interesting thing in my resume. If you don't know, I took a year off and worked on the Dr. Oz show for a year. And that was my thing that I straight up was told got me interviews. Having this YouTube channel, I was told got me interviews in certain cases because they thought that was a very interesting hobby. I'm not saying like go out and do something just for the sake of putting it on an application, but just make sure to put those things that make you unique and make you interesting into your personal statement or highlight it in your application. I think the personal statement is a good place to put it because almost everyone reads the personal statement. Not everyone will maybe get all the way down to the hobbies part of your CV, although I always look at that. But if it's something that you really would like to be asked about and want to highlight about yourself and you think makes you interesting, highlight it because I really think that can get you an interview somewhere. The next is something that might be really self-explanatory, but I just really want to highlight the importance of it, is acing your away rotations. Your away rotations are probably your best chance of matching at a place, right? Every program wants to take a known entity or someone that they really like. And if you do an away rotation and you impress people, people already know you. Again, it's like making connections. People know who you are. You've left a good impression and it shows that you're interested in that program because you can only do X number of away rotations. So it's kind of like a really good, if you really impress on an away rotation and you want to go somewhere, it's a really good chance of getting a spot there. I think that even if you don't necessarily really want to go to that program, getting a good letter from your away is really, really important. I think away rotations can tell if you're like not performing at your highest level or kind of like, taking a back seat, not enthusiastic, not reading about cases. Away rotations can tell, and I think it probably reflects in your letter. I think, the most important way to ace your away rotations is what I mentioned. Just be enthusiastic and be friendly, be up for anything, like excited about the opportunity of being there. And also kind of, you don't have to know everything, obviously, but knowing the history of your patient, like things that you can look up in the chart and kind of the basic steps to a procedure. Obviously, like for a prostatectomy, you don't need to know exactly everything we're doing and the suture we're using and everything like that, but kind of knowing the basic anatomy and the basic steps, and then like, has that patient had surgery before? Does this patient have diabetes? Because that can affect patient care, and shows that you've really like looked it up and done your research. Program directors and chairs, they talk, they're friends, they all kind of went to residency together, they all know each other. So I think you can only benefit yourself by really, really doing well on these away rotations. Kind of in line with that, and something I already mentioned, is get very good letters of recommendation. Do not ask someone to write you a letter of recommendation just because they're the chair of the program, but say you really didn't impress them and they're just going to write you an okay letter of rec. That comes across. If you have someone that you worked with who you did an exceptional job, say like you were on an OBGYN rotation and you thought you wanted to do OBGYN and you did an exceptional job, you went above and beyond, you did something fantastic, have that person write you a letter of recommendation. I think it's easy to say, listen, I thought I wanted to do OBGYN. I felt like I worked hard and did well on this rotation. and that person can write you a letter of recommendation. I think obviously you need to have letters of recommendation from urologists as well, but I think like one letter of recommendation from someone who's not a urologist, if you feel that you really went above and beyond or did an exceptionally good job on a certain rotation with a certain different type of physician, that is more than acceptable, if not encouraged, because the content of these letters of rec, you can tell when someone just did a fantastic job, and it really comes across in these letters, and it's really, really impressive. And then kind of my last piece of advice for right now is take a year off if you need to. If you feel like your application is just not where it should be or where you want it to be, or where maybe your program director thinks, this is not quite where I think you have a good shot of matching, take a year off. For me, it was one of the best things I did. Obviously, this is a very personal decision, and a decision you should discuss with your program director, with your family, with your loved ones, everything like that. But just from my personal experience, taking a year off was the best thing that I did for my application and for my life. I had an amazing time. I worked on something that was really interesting that I think benefited my application a lot. I had time to make sure that urology was exactly what I wanted to do, which it was. And I think I took a step back and then got to come back into the application process with a sense of maturity. I think it does present some challenges in terms of I took a year off between my third and fourth year. So I was away from clinical duties for a year. I came back, I was rusty suturing. I hadn't been involved in direct patient care in a year. And so it obviously took a little bit of warming up to get back into that. But for me, it was, like I mentioned, the best possible thing I could have done for my application. I got a year to kind of live my life, make some money, and be a normal human outside of medical school and residency. So, don't be afraid to do that if you think that is something that would be good for you and your application. I just wanted to put those ideas out there. Obviously, like I said, this is not comprehensive, nor is it absolute. If you have any suggestions, please leave them below. I would love to kind of incorporate those into another video, or people can read the comments and see kind of what else people recommend. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.